It is clear that the process of negotiation is an emotional affair. From the moment we begin to prepare, to the first impression, to the back and forth of proposals and arguments, to the final handshake, and even as we later sit at home reflecting on the outcome, we are inundated with emotions. Research tells us that how we perceive the world determine our actions and behaviors, as well as how we understand and analyze our social encounters. Given this, it is worth spending some time to better understand how we perceive the world and explore how our perceptions can easily and even predictably be distorted, which in turn can lead to errors in judgment. Perception is the process by which we connect to our environment. As we approach a negotiation, all of us are influenced by our perceptions of the past and the current environment. Although our goal is to accurately perceive and interpret the behaviors and words used by the other party, we are constantly influenced by our own perceptions. At its core, perception is a sense-making process. We are always and constantly trying to make sense of or interpret our environment so that we can act and respond in an appropriate way. The problem is that our environment is incredibly complex. It is simply impossible to process all the information that our senses are picking up. And given this complexity, we are forced to use shortcuts. Our perception of the environment is therefore selective. These shortcuts are necessary and in general serve us well as we try to navigate the world. But whenever you use a shortcut or rely on a rule of thumb, you run the risk of being inaccurate. That is, your perception may be biased and wrong, which in turn causes communication problems. Four famous such perception distortions are stereotyping, halo effects, selective perception, and projection. Stereotyping often occurs when we assign general attributes to a person based on their membership in some demographic category, like being female or being young or of a different race or nationality. As soon as this is done, we start to make all kinds of conclusions about an individual, many of which are likely to be very wrong. Halo effects occur when we assign many different attributes to a person based solely on our knowledge of a single attribute. For example, a person who smiles is honest, or a person that does not make eye contact cannot be trusted. These generalizations can easily lead us to make mistakes in our interpretation of a person's behaviors and use of words, mistakes that will make the negotiation more difficult. Selective perception and projection are also detrimental to negotiations. Selective perception may lead us to single out information that reinforces our initial beliefs and expectations. For example, if we expect a person to be honest, then a smile reinforces this belief, while if we expect dishonesty, then the same smile might be interpreted as a smirk, which clearly supports our initial conclusion of dishonesty. Projections occurs when we assign characteristics, attributes, and feelings to others just because we possess them ourselves. For example, if we think of ourselves as an honest person who would never cheat the other party, we might project this characteristic onto our negotiation partner, which might get us into trouble. Of course, the opposite can also happen, which is why negotiations often end up being distributive and competitive. Once we understand that our perception of the world is imperfect, it becomes clear that how we present both information and ourselves can make a big difference. And this is why framing is such a key concept in negotiation. A frame is the subjective mechanism through which we evaluate and make sense of situations. And naturally, how a situation is framed influences our actions. Framing is about focusing and organizing the world around us, making sense of a complex reality, and then defining it in terms that are meaningful to us. We cannot avoid framing a situation, and most of the time, framing occurs without us being consciously aware of how we frame a particular situation. Our frame is created subconsciously from past experiences, deep-seated attitudes, including stereotypes, and our current emotions. To conclude, how we frame a situation is incredibly important and will influence how we respond to the other party, as well as their proposals and arguments. And this raises two important issues. One, are we able to control how we frame the negotiation situation? The answer is a partial yes. If we understand the dynamics of framing, we will be better able to control our own behaviors as well as understand what the other party is doing. And we will therefore have better control over the negotiation process. Second, are we able to control how the other party frames the negotiation situation? The answer is once again a partial yes. By carefully thinking about how we present ourselves and our information, we can influence how the other party perceives us and our proposals, and therefore influence the likelihood that they will say yes to our ideas.